In the small, tight-knit village of Kamitu, the air was abuzz with tales of the perfect couple. Wanjiku and Luner, who had known each other since childhood, were the epitome of love and harmony. Their love story was a beacon of hope, encouraging every child in the village to dream of finding such a partner one day. They were inseparable, like the roots of an ancient tree, intertwined and unyielding. Whether it was fetching water from the river or gathering firewood from the dense forest, they did everything together, earning them the endearing nickname, the lovebirds. Time passed, and their love only deepened. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months, and before long, a year had passed since their traditional wedding. It was during this time that Wanjiku, with a heart full of joy, discovered she was pregnant. Her happiness knew no bounds as she shared the news with Luner, who was equally thrilled at the prospect of becoming a father. His excitement was palpable, and he began to prepare for the arrival of their first child with the same dedication he had shown in his marriage. As Wanjiku's belly grew, so did Luner's anticipation. The day finally arrived when the cries of newborns filled their humble home. Wanjiku had given birth to twins, 2 beautiful daughters. The village erupted in celebration, and a grand feast was held to honor the new life that had been brought into the world. The night was filled with laughter, music, and the smell of roasting meat, a celebration that would be remembered for years to come. But beneath the surface of this joyous occasion, a seed of discontent began to grow in Luner's heart. When he learned that his children were girls, a shadow crossed his face, and a sense of disappointment settled in. He had dreamed of having sons, strong, capable boys who would carry on his legacy and name. The villagers noticed the change in his demeanor, but they dismissed it as the effects of the local brew he had indulged in for the first time that night. As the celebrations continued, Luner's mood darkened. He became aggressive, lashing out in anger and confusion. The villagers, sensing trouble, tried to calm him down, but the damage was done. The man who had once been the embodiment of love and gentleness had begun to unravel. The next morning, Wanjiku, still weak from childbirth, approached her husband, hoping to understand the source of his distress. But instead of the loving man she had married, she found a cold stranger who harbored resentment toward her. "I wanted sons," he spat, his voice dripping with bitterness. "And you gave me daughters." Wanjiku was heartbroken. She could not comprehend why Luner would blame her for something beyond her control. But despite her sadness, she remained silent, hoping that with time, Luner would come to love their daughters as much as she did. However, time did not heal the wounds. The love that had once bound them together began to fray at the edges. Luner withdrew from Wanjiku, retreating to the kitchen where he began to sleep alone, away from the warmth of their marital bed. His drinking increased, and with each passing day, he became more distant, more volatile. Wanjiku bore the brunt of his anger, suffering in silence as he took out his frustrations on her. For 2 long years, the cycle of abuse continued. Almost every night, Luner, drunk and enraged, would beat Wanjiku, often in front of their 2 young daughters. Despite the pain and humiliation, Wanjiku remained silent, her love for Luner clouding her judgment. She refused to let anyone know the extent of her suffering, even when her face bore the marks of his violence. But everything changed one fateful night. Luner came home, more intoxicated than ever before. In his drunken fury, he turned his anger not only on Wanjiku but on their 2 innocent daughters as well. The sight of her children being beaten was too much for Wanjiku to bear. In that moment, something inside her snapped, and she realized that she could no longer endure the torment. With a strength born of desperation, Wanjiku screamed for help. The villagers, who had long suspected that something was amiss, rushed to her aid. They found Luner in a blind rage, attacking his own family. The men of the village subdued him, tying him up until the morning when he would be sober enough to face the consequences of his actions. As dawn broke, Luner was brought before the village elders. His once proud demeanor was gone, replaced by shame and regret. The villagers, who had once praised him as the ideal husband, now looked upon him with disdain. The elders condemned his behavior and he was severely punished for his cruelty. But the damage had already been done. Wanjiku knew that she could no longer stay with a man who had betrayed her and their daughters so completely. With a heavy heart, she made the difficult decision to leave Luner and return to her mother's home. It was a sacrifice born of love, not for Luner, but for her daughters, whom she was determined to protect. As Wanjiku left the village with her daughters in tow, Luner's life spiraled out of control. He became a shadow of his former self, consumed by guilt and alcohol. He wandered the streets, a broken man, shunned by the very community that had once celebrated his marriage. He never sought out his daughters, not even as they grew into strong, independent women under the guidance of their mother. Wanjiku, on the other hand, found strength in her role as a single mother. She raised her daughters with love and care, teaching them the values of kindness, resilience, and self-respect. The scars of the past were deep, but Wanjiku refused to let them define her or her children. In the end, Wanjiku's daughters grew up to be everything Luner had once hoped for in a child: strong, capable, and proud of their heritage. They were a testament to their mother's courage and sacrifice, a living reminder that true strength comes not from brute force, but from love and perseverance. And so, the village of Kamita learned a valuable lesson: that love, once betrayed, can never be fully restored, but it can transform into something even stronger, a love that endures, protects, and heals. Follow and subscribe and never miss out new content once we upload. Adios!